Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and it's time to do our fourth installment of the Ask Youngblood Anything videos, and we're going to go ahead and just jump on into it. Jack Monopoly wanted to know, hey, I'd like to hear your opinion and thoughts on the hard points and their sizes on the Redeemer gunship. Thanks. I think the Redeemer is in an interesting place, because I think it's set up to be an absolute behemoth. You've got the missile racks, you've got the under cockpit size 3 turret, you've got the 2 man turrets on the top, 1 bottom, and then you also have size 4 unmanned turrets on the nacelles. Now those are the ones that ended up getting added onto the ship, and I think those are the ones that needed to be added. Now, whether those are going to end up staying that size, we're not going to know until we get it into the game and actually start getting to fly it and do combat with it. But I think what gets tricky is the Freelancer came in with its size 4 guns, and it was really kind of overpowered for what it should have been. Now, the guns on that ship should be scary, especially since they're kind of limited in, its overall versatility as far as combat is concerned. But I think the size 3s that it has right now are in a good place. You take the Redeemer, and then which is kind of a similar size, and you're saying you've got size 4s on each side, you've got turrets that are lining up all over this thing. Basically, on paper, it looks like an incredibly powerful ship. And I think it needs to be good in its intended role. Remember, this is a gunship. Nothing else in the game is a gunship. You could say that you could kind of turn a Super Hornet into one, or you can put 6 guns on a Delta. Those are fighters. Constellation's got some big guns on it, but ultimately that's a multi-purpose ship. This ship, I think, is in a good place right now. It's got limited versatility and a high price tag, so it should be good in those 2 roles that it does well, dropship and gunship. If they start giving it too much modularity as far as that troop carrying compartment goes, that's when I think the current state of the statistics get to be a little bit too high. I think if it gets more versatility, the overall effectiveness of the weapons come down. But honestly, I just hope to God they don't make any changes or add very limited versatility if they do anything. Because where it stands right now, I think it's in a good spot. It's supposed to be scary. It's a gunship. Erebus Nettie says, I have a whole B, and the alpha got me thinking, how would space piracy go if I can just quantum drive away from location to location? That's a good question, and I think it's something that they're going to really have to think through and plan out as we kind of get into the more persistent universe. There's 2 things that have been mentioned so far that I think kind of play into this. One is that you're not supposed to be able to quantum drive when your shields are completely down. So, if somebody's able to disable you before you're able to quantum out, and not even disable you, but disable your shields, then it would lock you in place. And then the other one is it's kind of the hot button that's been mentioned a couple times recently, and that's the interdiction device, or interdiction ship. For those of you that have played Elite Dangerous, you end up, any ship can equip an interdictor. And basically what that does is you're able to get behind another ship in its wake and be able to kind of create a gravity well that you kind of try and force them out of their sublight travel. I think in Eve, and I've never played Eve, so I could be totally wrong here, but from reading, I hear that Eve has interdiction ships that kind of put out this big bubble that kind of prevents people from being able to jump away. So I could see it being either one of those. I kind of prefer the mindset of the first one, just because in Elite it led to some interesting chases, and it was kind of a little mini game within the game. But I think either approach is something that could equip pirates to make sure that people can't just get away at a moment's notice. Kessel Veris says, Youngblood, have you ever considered doing voice acting or participating in a machinima made for Star Citizen? No, I have not. We did a little bit of one with the PXP as kind of an advertising type of deal, but frankly, I know I've got a decent voice. I'm comfortable talking. I speak pretty clearly, and I think most of that's just come from my job. But I have 0 acting training. I don't express emotions as well as somebody that's a trained actor would. So when I do it, it sounds forced. I've done it a couple times for various videos. I can take on a very limited role, but honestly, outside of me making a pseudo cameo, I don't think you should count on seeing me in a machinima. Gel Nearin 1 says, I haven't found information about children around the verses or 10 for the chairman, so do you know if there will be children and what extent? Maybe only in safe zones so that you can't kill them. Yeah, killing children would be kind of a downer for the game. I expect that you're going to see children planetside. I think you're going to see them walking around. You're going to have some probably limited interaction with them. But I don't think you're actually going to have like a kid kind of jumping on your ship to drive around with. I think where we're going to see children having the biggest impact on your gameplay is if you haven't read The Death of a Spaceman yet, I highly encourage it because it talks about the persistence and kind of your lifespan of your character. And eventually, after you die a certain amount of times, you're no longer going to be able to be brought back. And that's when you come back into the universe as your descendant. And that descendant is going to be presumably your child. So I think that's going to be where we see the biggest impact of children, but I don't think we're going to have, like, you know, in the back of your freelancer, a little kid running around, hopping in the turret, accidentally shooting Billy and the, you know, Hornet behind you. I think they're going to be more kind of for the, like, the atmosphere and kind of giving some reality, but I don't think you're going to be killing children in the persistent universe. Okay, C. Idler says, do you think there's going to be any concept sales in CIG's pipeline? Well, I think there's two that we kind of have been hinted at, or at least know that are coming. The first is the Asperia Prowler. That's supposed to be the Teverin boarding craft that's kind of been revamped with current human technology. That's the one that's been mentioned the most, and I know is in some form or fashion of development. The other one is potentially an interdiction ship, and I say that just because on one of the Around the Verse or Reverse the Verse or one of the shows that they do, somebody had mentioned an interdiction ship, and then they kind of got stink-eyed. Like, you weren't supposed to mention that yet, or we're not supposed to give any details on it. So it's a game mechanic they're working on, and if they're going, like, you know, I mentioned you could either chase somebody and equip it on any ship or kind of put out a bubble. If it's going to be kind of the latter, then I would expect to see another ship coming out that's in the pipeline. You know, there is kind of a hybrid, now that I'm saying this out loud, that could potentially work. Maybe something that you can equip on any ship, but ends up making some form of a bubble. You know, kind of like the Warlock drive for the Avenger. You know, maybe you can slap something in there, and then an interdiction ship becomes a form or a fashion of a electronic warfare type ship. I could see something like that happening and being a happy medium to where they're not having to actually develop a whole nother ship, but the gameplay is what they're going to have to figure out the most. Shui J1 says, when do you think Squadron 42 is going to be released? What will be noteworthy with update 2.2? Thanks for keeping up to date. Squadron 42, I believe, is still slated for release at the end of the year, so probably December. I wouldn't be surprised if we get one, like maybe one very early mission, or maybe even a training released before that. Something just kind of to, you know, tease it and build up hype. Otherwise, I'm still counting on the end of the year being the release date for Squadron 42. And especially when you start looking at the way things are being developed and released, I think we're seeing a lot of things out there like the Vanguard getting done very, very fast, the Saber being done very, very fast, the Starfarer, which we know is going to be in Squadron 42, got pushed up. Anything that's going to be in Squadron 42 is getting priority, and I think it's to make sure that they hit that release date. And I think that's good. I think I have faith in that actually happening. What's going to be noteworthy with update 2.2? It's a really good question. I could see a couple of things. One, they said initially that the Starfarer was going to be in hangar in January. We have 2 days left, and we just got a patch to live, so I'm not necessarily counting on getting the Starfarer, or the Starfarer by January. But if it's not out by the time 2.2 rolls around, I would maybe expect to see the Starfarer. I could also see the Saber potentially being flight ready pretty quickly. As well as the Reliant being hangar ready. And we might even get the Reliant and the GN Scout hangar ready at some point. But it's hard to really say, because when you start doing a ship in the hangar, it doesn't need to be with a major update. You know, because you're not, unless it's flight ready, you just have to be able to look at it or maybe climb inside of it. It doesn't have to have all the animations and the behaviors of it really worked out. So that could just be added in a hot patch, you know, maybe 2.19 or something like that. But it could come a little bit later. But those are the ones that I could see maybe coming up for 2.2. I know there's a lot of speculation out there, so if anybody else has any good ideas, feel free to throw it out there. But those are the ones that kind of come to mind. DB43 Zephyr 1 says, hey, do you know if we'll be able to purchase ships in-game with credits once the game comes out? I really want a Saber, but I don't want to spend $170. I don't blame you. It's a lot of money, and a lot of people are getting into the game at the cheapest level, spending 40 bucks, you know, getting an Aurora or a Mustang and saying, I'm going to earn everything in-game. And they say that because everything that you can buy now will be available in-game. In fact, once the game's actually released, you're not going to be able to buy ships with real money anyways. So yes, if you're not comfortable spending the $170, do not spend the $170. You will be totally fine, and you'll probably be able to rent one with rec anyways once it actually comes out, so you can get a little bit of a taste of it, and then decide if it's something you actually want to work towards in the persistent universe. But no, and that's advice for everybody. If you're uneasy or uncomfortable about spending money on anything in this game, don't do it. You can earn everything in-game. Zachary White 1 says, hey, Youngblood. I keep adding 1 to everybody's names. I copy and paste this into a Word document, and I make sure to get the comment and the name. And what I didn't realize was it was including 1 week ago, because that's when the first video released. And there's not a space between the name and the date. So everybody's name looks like Zachary White 1. I'm an idiot. Okay, so apologies for screwing up your names, but to get to Zachary's question, hey Youngblood, would you mind painting us a picture of how PXP, your organization, is going to operate? I'm really looking forward to being a part of a community where I can get a Starfarer to good use and have friends help me operate and escort it, and I think it might be a good fit. Yes, PXP is a rapidly growing organization. I am not the leader, I am a leader. We have a 5-person council that's kind of our core leadership group, and I'm one of those 5. The community overall is really designed around one primary point, and that's to make sure all of our members have a good time. Outside of that, if you want to have a good time and when you're playing a game, a lot of time that means winning. Now, that doesn't mean barking orders and making sure everybody's getting in line. You want to have a good time by winning and enjoying the opportunity the time that you're spending together. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to have a couple operations nights, you might say, where we say, Thursday nights is a combat-oriented night, or it's our core organizational group. We're hauling as much goods as possible and providing escorts. Now, some of this is going to really depend on what the instances let us do. If we have 900 people and let's say 200 of them are on at any given time, well, if an instance is limited to 30 people, we're going to have to break up into a lot of smaller groups. If an instance is at 100 people, then you can get 2-3 groups running at the same time. So there's going to be some interesting dynamics that we're really waiting on from CIG to release. But yes, it's very community oriented. Of a lot of people that we come from a first-person shooter game. We really developed in PlanetSide 2, so we have a lot of first-person shooter players, and a lot of them don't even want to fly. They just want to be crew members. So we've developed a pretty good group. We have people that are kind of siloing off into different areas. Like I'm focusing on combat. There's other people that are wanting to do cargo. There's exploration. There's mining. But ultimately, we have the people to kind of support each other and that mindset of working together as a group. So if you've got a Starfarer and you've got friends that you want to have people help you out, you would have that. If you just want people to escort you and make sure your Starfarer is safe, you'll absolutely have that. So I agree. I think it's a good fit. I think that's a good note for any of you guys. If you're looking for a home, PXP is actively recruiting. We're not trying to be the biggest. I mean, we're in the top 20 at this point. We're just letting it grow organically. That's why we're not out there spamming invites. But I think our message resonates well with people, focusing on having a good time. So if you're interested, in the description of this and every one of my videos, there's a link to join up. Feel free to come spend a little bit of time with us if you like. John Cloyd, not one, says, STL, a friend showed me this game a few weeks ago, and from what I have seen, I am in love. I'm getting the game. Good choice. The only thing holding me back is that I don't know what ship to start with. I'm more of a bounty hunter type, but like you said, trading is almost a must for greater revenue. So the question is, what starter ship you dual, trade, and bounty hunt in? Okay, so it's challenging to answer this because a lot of people are looking for this ship that can do anything. And that's understandable, but I think what you need to understand and what everybody really needs to understand is if you get a ship that can do everything, it's probably not going to be the master of anything. Now, I would say if you're wanting to fight and trade and bounty hunt, maybe pick the one that one of those categories that matters the least. And then we also need to know a price point. So for example, if you say, I want to fight and I want to bounty hunt the most, then I would say at the lowest price point, I would say go get yourself an Avenger Stalker. It's got the holding cells in the back. It's got the disruption cannons to disable enemy ships. It's fast. It's got a really powerful nose gun. All in all, I think that ship would fit those well. It can carry a little bit of cargo, so you could do some trading, but it's not going to do you nearly as well. You know, on the other hand, we have like the Cutlass Blue, which is a limited ship, but if you're able to purchase it, it's $150. I think it would do a really good job at bounty hunting and trading, and potentially could be a really good fighter, but it really depends on what the updates to the Cutlass are. You know, they've talked about changing the flight mechanics a lot, and it's kind of been the much to the chagrin of a lot of Cutlass owners. So there's a lot of ships that are in there, but I always feel comfortable recommending the Avenger. One thing that you could do is start with the Avenger Titan. It's the cheapest of the Avengers at $50. It's a good combat ship. It has the open back, so you can do a little bit more trading than you would be able to in the Stalker variety. And you can always then in-game purchase the holding cells for your Stalker, or for your Titan, and turn it into a Stalker by just swapping out the mechanics on the inside. So you have those types of options. So the Avenger is always a ship I feel very comfortable recommending to people. And based on what you mentioned there, I think it's a good fit. King Gear Gaming says, what is your thought on the Idris and Javelin, and what's the ETA on seeing them in a hangar? My thoughts on both of them are they are awesome. I would love to have an Idris, and I have really thought about it a couple times. I have a hard time pulling the trigger, obviously based on the price. It's one of those ships that I'm definitely going to be working towards in-game, but I've got a high desire to own one. As far as... And the other thing with it is I prefer to kind of be the combat person, not necessarily the one standing on the bridge telling everybody else what to do on the ship. I don't mind directing an organizational combat effort, but being just standing there with my arms crossed watching other people fly the ship for me isn't necessarily, and who knows, maybe if I got into that role I'd be like, hot damn, this is exactly what I wanted to do. But I don't know, it just hasn't been a huge priority for me. As far as an ETA and seeing them in the hangar, we know the Idris is going to be in Squadron 42. And I would have to assume that the Javelin is going to be in Squadron 42. Now, what's going to be interesting is how much of a correlation there is between the fact that they're in Squadron 42 and their actual availability to fly in the persistent universe. Just because I don't think you're going to be flying an Idris in Squadron 42. I think you're going to be on board an Idris. So a lot of what the ship is doing could be pre-scripted. It doesn't necessarily need to respond to player controls. So I would say for those two ships, we're probably talking about 2017. That's just kind of my speculation there, but, you know, just kind of a good guess. And then you say, what system is Star Citizen, or what system in Star Citizen would be ideal for an average org that's just trying to make a living, for instance, mining, trading, bounty hunting, etc., on a whole series? I think there's a lot that fit the bill. You know, I think Ellis is a decent option. The system that we're in right now, Stanton, I think would be a really good choice for you. It's going to be relatively safe because you're in the you're kind of right there in the heart of UEE space, but there's also some dangerous systems just one jump away. You know, so I think not only do you get a chance to kind of become proficient in the area that we're in, I think you also get the ability to jump out to more dangerous areas to do things like bounty hunting. Another one to consider would be Vega. You know, Vega's out there by the enemy lines, so if you want, or by the Vandal lines. So if you're wanting to do some combat with the Vandals, some escorting of your people, there's some mining there, that would be another good one. So just off the top of my head, those three would be ones that you probably want to check out. And then the last question for this video, Peter Zamitis says, what do you think of the current state of e-warfare? Personally, I think it's a little bit too powerful, and when people can actually communicate in game, the combination of e-warfare and normal weapons will shred ships. I wish I was better equipped to answer this question for you right now, because I, to this date, have not had a single interaction with electronic warfare in the persistent universe or an arena commander. It just hasn't happened. And I've been in some juicy targets like my Andromeda and my Freelancer. I just haven't been hit with it. I haven't seen it. I don't own a Warlock, so I haven't used it. You know, my experience with it to this point is using the disruption cannons, and I'm still not sure how much of that's actually implemented at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up to people in the comments to just go ahead and answer that for you. I can see the potential for it being overpowered. But CIG has very actively also said we don't want people to always have to worry about electronic warfare. You shouldn't have to be paranoid about electronic warfare. And it sounds like there's going to be more counters built into the game to help you deal with it. So right now it's kind of like an arms race, and if there's not anything to deal with electronic warfare, but there is electronic warfare, the electronic warfare wins. So I think there's going to be more to kind of balance that out as the game goes on. EWAR is just winning the arms race at the moment. So. All right, guys, I appreciate the questions. Again, I say it at the end of every video, but I have a blast making these. So stay tuned. One personal note, I know a lot of you guys were, helping out and supporting our adoption fund. For those of you that don't know, my wife and I are adopting a child. And we just got great news today that our profile is now effectively live, meaning that we can get a phone call at any point now saying that we have been matched with a child. So I am pretty excited. Really good news for the day. So thanks again for all of you that have supported us throughout the journey, and I'll keep you guys updated as we hear more information. So that's going to be it for now. Stay tuned for more. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.